Let's talk about a habit that is so common in business, we barely even think about it anymore. But what if I told you that very habit is like a ticking time bomb? Well, it's time to stop sharing secrets and start sharing access, and finally put an end to that risk for good.
All right, let's kick things off with a super honest question. Your team needs to get into a shared account. What do? Do you find yourself just dropping the password into Slack, maybe an email, or even a text? We've all been there. It feels fast, it feels efficient. But it's a habit we really, really need to break.
And that's the crazy part, isn't it? In the moment, it just feels so harmless. Speed is everything. But every single time we do that, we're basically leaving a digital breadcrumb trail of our most important keys, just sitting there in our searchable chat logs and inboxes.
And look, this isn't just a hunch. Major security organizations like NIST have been sounding the alarm on this for years. They point out that these common habits create a whole bunch of vulnerabilities, everything from a complete account takeover to something called credential stuffing, which is where one leaked password becomes a skeleton key for attackers to try on dozens of other services.
Okay, so what are we really talking about here? The risk kind of breaks down into three main problems. First, you've got credential sprawl. We all know people reuse passwords, right? So one leak can suddenly compromise a whole web of accounts. Second, social engineering resets. This is where attackers don't even need the password. They just trick a support desk into resetting it for them. And the big one for businesses, no audit trail. If 5 people are using the same login, you have absolutely no idea who deleted that critical file or posted that embarrassing tweet.
So, we've laid out the problem. It's pretty clear. Now we need to talk about the solution. But this isn't about just getting a slightly better password manager. No, this requires a fundamental change in how we think. We're moving away from that old, broken model and towards something called session sharing. This right here, this is the core idea. If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this: share access, not passwords. Give someone the ability to do a job inside an account, but never, ever give them the keys to the entire kingdom. So, what is session sharing, really? Well, it's the practice of giving someone temporary, and this is the important part, controlled access to an account that's already logged in. They can use the service, they can do their work, but they never ever see the username or the password. The secret stays safe with you.
I mean, just look at the difference here. It's night and day. The old way is high risk, totally uncontrolled, and untraceable. Once you hand over a password, that's it. You've lost control. Session sharing flips every single one of those points. It's secure, it's controlled, it's completely auditable, and it's always temporary. This is a total game changer.
All right, the theory sounds great, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, the how is surprisingly simple.
Believe it or not, the whole thing just takes a few seconds. First, you launch a secure session. Then, you log into the site you need, just like you always do. Then, with one click, you hit Share Session and generate a unique link. You can set some rules, like maybe a time limit, and when the job's done, you just revoke access. Simple, clean, and totally secure.
And you can totally trust this, because what's happening behind the scenes is seriously robust. It's all built on strong, modern encryption. Every tab is completely isolated from the others, so cookies and data from one account can't bleed into another. And it uses a zero-trust model, meaning the website's code is running in the cloud, not on your machine, which dramatically cuts your risk of malware.
But it gets even better. This isn't just about turning access on and off. The real power here comes from being able to manage that access with intelligence and precision.
Think of these features like your own personal security guardrails. You can set a timer so access automatically expires. No more forgotten accounts for contractors who left months ago. You can even blur or block sensitive parts of a page so someone can update your website without ever seeing your billing info.
Okay, so far everything we've talked about has been about making things safer. But here's the kicker. It also makes your team faster. This is that magic point where security stops being a hassle and actually becomes an accelerator.
Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Is this really faster than just copy-pasting a password? It's a fair question, but when you look at the entire process, not just that one little action, the answer is a huge, resounding yes.
For anyone whose job involves juggling a bunch of different accounts, the productivity boost is claimed to be up to 80%. Yeah, 80%. That number comes from getting rid of that soul-crushing cycle of logging out, logging in, logging out, logging back in again all day long.
So who are these people saving all this time? Well, it's exactly who you'd think. We're talking about marketers managing a dozen client campaigns, e-commerce sellers on multiple platforms, SEO pros trying to check rankings, and developers who need to test different user roles. This is for them.
Let's get super practical. Imagine a developer finds a weird bug. Instead of writing out a 10-step email on how to reproduce it, they just share the exact session where the bug is happening. No passwords, no staging accounts. The project manager sees exactly what they see, instantly. Or what about a marketer? Someone managing 10 different client ad accounts. Instead of juggling 10 different browsers or constantly clearing their cookies, they can have all 10 open in isolated tabs right in the same window. They can just click between them. The time that saves is just enormous.
Let's really put this head-to-head. Instead of onboarding a contractor with a password they have forever, you share a link that just expires in 24 hours. Instead of a clunky screen share to show a bug, you share a live, interactive cloud tab. Instead of a slow, system-wide VPN, you use a targeted proxy just for one task. In every single one of these cases, the new way isn't just safer, it's just plain better.
So here's the bottom line. It's actually pretty simple. If your team is still passing around passwords, you're not only taking on a huge amount of risk you don't need, you are actively slowing everyone down with workflows that are just totally outdated. All right, let's wrap this up with the 4 big takeaways you need to remember. First, the problem. Password sharing is a hidden, untraceable risk. Second, the solution. Session sharing gives access, not secrets. Third, the security. Know that isolation and encryption have your back. And finally, the productivity. You can actually collaborate faster and safer.
So I'm going to leave you with one last question to think about. Your team's access to its most critical tools is the absolute lifeblood of your business. Are you really comfortable protecting it with habits that were already outdated a decade ago?